Hi, good evening, guys. Thank you so much for joining us on our exciting Upgrade Mastery just for you. I'm super excited that we're here again on another exciting Upgrade Mastery just for you with Mr. Upgrade. How are you doing? This is Fridays, and on Fridays, we get to do the Upgrade Mastery just for you. And for Upgrade Mastery just for you, we basically get to share our learnings and our experiences from the week, right? So, how was your week? What did you do this week? What were the things that stood out for you this week? What were challenges you faced? How were you able to overcome them? What were the things that really just made you know that yes, you had a great, great week, right? All those things for you. And those are the things we get to talk about on the Upgrade Mastery just for you. We just get to relax, have fun, just look around and see the things that we have learned all through the things that happened during the week because those learnings have a way it helps us to do better as we make progress into the new week. So, how are you? Let's start off from there. How are you? Sometimes we get so busy, we don't really get to pause and really ask ourselves, how are you doing? How are you holding up? You see, how was your week? Like, what were the things that stood out for you this week? If there were challenges, how were you able to overcome them? And if there were victories and successes, what was it like for you when you handled those areas, right? So, it's a new week coming in for you next week. But for this week, let's take a feedback on how everything went for you. Like, what did you do? What did you achieve? What challenges did you face? And how did you scale through, right? How did you scale through those challenges? How were you able to bounce back from the difficulties? How were you able to pick up yourself again from challenges you may have faced? And how were you able to get back on your grind, right? Because of what you may have been hit by. Sometimes we go through some difficulties that we really can't just explain, right? But many times some people just shut down, some people just put themselves off, and then they don't know how to continue with what they need to do. So this week we had an amazing, amazing time with some of the things that we discussed on the belief system because we believe that that really would help people to become better. When they go through the belief system sessions that we share, they will begin to learn some things that would really, really help them on their journey, and they too can become better at whatever it is that they do. So this week, we looked at a few things, right? This week we started off the week by talking about, we looked at becoming the needed. And on that conversation, we saw the need for people to not only be needy, but to grow themselves that they become the needed. Now, it's one thing to be needy, right? It's one thing that you need help, you need people to come through for you, you are in a fix, and you need people to come and show you support and all of that. So it's one thing to be needy, but then it's also important that you move away from just being needy to become being the needed, right? And today we're going to talk about light. But before we get into light, I want to take a few recap from the things that we looked during the week, right? Now, on that conversation on become the needed, we emphasize the need for you to grow, to become competent. Looking at the story of Joseph, while Joseph was in prison and he met the butler and the baker, he spoke to the butler after interpreting the butler's dream as one who was needy. He told the butler, put in a word to Pharaoh for me. Right? And that sounds cool. Right? That sounds like a normal thing to do. Let people put a word in for you. Let me go refer you and all of that. Now, at that point, Joseph was needy. But then, interestingly, many times the people we put hopes on have an interesting way they just get to disappoint us, right? They just have an interesting way. They don't just show up for us eventually and it leaves us in a fix. Now, that was the same thing that happened for Joseph. That was the same thing that happened for Joseph, right? So the butler forgot about him, and 2 years passed. And then suddenly, Pharaoh now had a dream. Now, while Pharaoh had a dream, no one Like in the whole of Egypt, imagine how massive Egypt was. The whole of Egypt, Egypt that had wise men and sorcerers and soothsayers, the whole of Egypt, no one could interpret Pharaoh's dream. Now, at this point, the butler now remembered and said, "Wow, today I remember my wrong. I was in Hebrew who I met in the prison while Pharaoh, you were angry with us and put me and the baker in prison. Now we both had dreams, and this Hebrew boy interpreted our dreams, and the interpretation came to pass just as he said." And scripture says Pharaoh made haste to bring Joseph. He told them to bring Joseph hastily. Now, at this point, look at what had just happened. Joseph had moved away from being the needy to becoming the needed. Now, why is this important for us and why is this critical for you? Is to know that you must become competent at whatever it is that you do so that you can move away from being the needy to being the needed. At the level where you are the needed, you are not being favored. At the level where you are the needed, they need you. They are two different things. At the level of being the needy, they can help you because they are favoring you. But at the level of being the needed, you are competent, so you are needed. And the goal for you is to become the needed, not being needy. So that's where we started off the conversation during the week, and we told people 3 simple ways for you to become the needed: to have value, to have purpose, and to have results. Once you have these 3 things in your arsenal, you become the needed because you have value, you are beneficial, you have help, you have solution, you have a purpose, right? And then you have results. Now, with this, people will need you as against when you are being needy, right? So that's how we started off the week. And then we talked about we talked about hurts, trauma, and healing. Now, I love this conversation on hurt, trauma, and healing because it lets us understand that a lot of people go through hurts and trauma, and not many of them get to the process where they engage in healing. And like I always tell people, you may not be responsible for the hurt or the trauma, but healing is your responsibility. So in our Develop You session during the week, that's what we talked about, to let people know that, see, regardless of the hurt, regardless of the trauma, your healing is your responsibility. And you must take responsibility for your healing, right? You may not have been the reason or the cause for the hurt or the trauma. I know one of the things that people don't know about when it comes to trauma, just seeing something traumatic happen to another person can cause trauma for you, right? So you may not be, oh, you went through your own abuse or you went through your own molestation or rape or whatever, but just seeing it at close proximity happening to another person, you can also be traumatized by it. Just like when there are kids who grow up in homes where they see their dad and their mom fight. Those things are traumatic for those kids, right? And that could be hurting, and they can be traumatized by those events. Those kids need healing. And I often tell people this, that for the fact that you despise or hate the things that you saw that were traumatic to you doesn't stop you from repeating those same patterns. I'll say that again. For the fact that you despise or you hate those things you saw that were traumatic to you, that doesn't stop you from repeating those same patterns if you don't get healing. So we talked about why it's important for people, regardless of the hurt or the trauma, to find themselves at places, opportunities for them to heal. Because when they don't heal, they would continue to bleed. Like the saying goes, that when you don't heal from what hurts you, you would bleed on those who never caught you. right? When you don't bleed from what hurts you, if you don't heal from what hurts you, you would bleed on those who never caught you, right? So you need to heal. That's your responsibility. So we talked about that so that people can understand the need for healing. And then we continued our system session on the week, and then we discussed about accountability's responsibility. You know, at this time of the year, people are always talking about, oh, I need to have an accountability partner or I need to be in an accountability program. But the truth of it all is this: accountability is your responsibility. Nobody's responsible for you being accountable, right? Accountability is solely your responsibility. It's solely your responsibility. So it is on you to be accountable. You cannot blame anybody when you are not accountable, right? So we talked about that during the week and we shared that the reasons why accountability is your responsibility is simple. Number one, nobody owes you anything. Number two, who you become is entirely up to you. And then number three, in the blame game, everybody loses, nobody wins. Now, I love telling people this about the blame game because you see a lot of people love to play the blame game. And you see that happen from the very first book of scripture, the book of Genesis, where Adam said, it was the woman you gave me. Eve said, it was the serpent that deceived me. Blame game. They were not taking responsibility for what they have done wrong. They were playing the blame game. And in the blame game, interestingly, everyone who plays the blame game, they lose. Nobody wins in the blame game. They all lose. Right? So we talked about accountability is your responsibility. So in case you missed out on those conversations, follow us on Instagram. That's where we share those conversations that I'm talking about right now. So you can always follow us on Instagram at Wisdom Counseling, so you can get to read up from our belief system sessions. Those sessions will literally help you. They are of so much value, right? We share them Mondays through Fridays, different topics, right? That would help you to become the better you. In fact, that will help you to upgrade, help you live good behind to upgrade. So we moved on from accountability is your responsibility, and we talked about has it occurred to you yet? Now, I love this conversation on has it occurred to you yet, because sometimes until things occur to you, you keep taking yourself for granted, right? And I said in that conversation, there are three simple reasons has it occurred to you yet. Number one, has it occurred to you yet to stop lying to yourself? Right? Has it occurred to you yet to tell yourself the truth? And has it occurred to you yet to begin the process of change and transformation? Now, for the prodigal son, it occurred to him that the servant in his father's house had enough to eat and to spare. So why does he have to languish in hunger? It occurred to him. Prior to that time, he was okay eating with swine, because scripture says nobody gave to him. So he was okay doing that. But the moment it occurred to him that in his father's house, the servants have enough to eat and to spare. So they didn't just have to eat and be okay. They also had leftover. They also had to spare. When that occurred to him, he knew it was time to go back home. I know people jokingly say that now you understand why the prodigal son had to go home, when he discovered that taking care of yourself is a whole responsibility entirely, and he just felt, nah, I ain't going to be able to do this. I'm not mature enough for this. I'm going home. I am going home. So the question that we're asking in this conversation is, has it occurred to you yet that you are great? Has it occurred to you yet that you are not small? Has it occurred to you yet that you can do big things? Now, until it occurs to you, you will never see it from that perspective. Until it occurs to you, you never have the audacity to go all out, because it hasn't occurred to you yet. So the question is, has it occurred to you yet? Has it occurred to you yet that you can do big things? Has it occurred to you that you are awesome and phenomenal and enigmatic? Has it occurred to you yet? Because until it occurs to you, you still keep living small. You still not take yourself seriously. You still not take your life seriously until it occurs to you. Like we always say, when it occurs to you, you have an aha moment, like the light bulb moment. And that's why we're talking about light today. You have that light bulb moment in your head to know, this is it. No going back anymore because it has occurred to you. So the question is, has it occurred to you yet? And I love that conversation so that it just helps me keep things in perspective, right? And then we went further and we talked about take action. Now, the reason why I love this conversation is this. See, you never know what will happen until you take action. That's the truth. You never know what will happen until you take action. And a lot of people, they don't take action. Instead, they are filled with procrastination. They don't take action. And there are three simple reasons why you have to take action. Number one, you get feedback. Right? You get feedback. You know what works, what doesn't work, and what you need to rework. You get feedback when you take action. Number two, you get results. It's very important. When you take action, you would get results. So it's very important that you get to take action because you would get results when you take action. And number three, when you take action, is that you get supernatural backing. You know, when those four lepers took action after they said to themselves, why sit we here and die? It was then that their feet started to sound like a marching army. Prior to that time, they were just lepers. But the moment they took action, their footsteps sounded like a marching army. And now, the weird thing of this whole conversation was the fact that if you had seen lepers in those days, they suffer from extremities in their nails, their feet. So they really can make so much noise, right? They really cannot make so much noise when they are walking. But yet, it was the fact that they took action that the supernatural backed up that action. And the enemies heard the sound of a marching army and they fled. Now, take note of this, right? Why this is interesting. Take note of this. The fact is, follow me closely. The fact is this: if they didn't take action, they would have perished, like they said. Because they say, why sit we here and die? Because the famine was severe. And nobody was going to come to their aid because they were lepers, because lepers normally are abandoned. Right? Nobody was going to come to their aid. But because they took action, they walked into abundance. Like I always tell people most of the time, people who say, if I perish, I perish, they never perish. I'll say that again. People who say, if I perish, I perish, they never perish. So you must learn to take action. And we shared that during the week. Those of you who are just joining me, thank you so much for being here. Leave a comment in the comment section so I know you're here and I know where you're watching for. So if you're just joining in, please leave a comment in the comment section so I know where you're joining in from, and I appreciate you for joining. And do want to leave a comment so that people who come back and watch the replay would see your comment. And if you do watch the replay, do want to leave a comment from what you learned and what stood out for you, because that really would help us to know that you are gaining so much value from our conversation, right? That's one way too you take action, right? Thank you so much for being here, right? So we told you that the three simple reasons why you need to take action. Number one, you will get feedback. You never get feedback until you take action. And number two, you get results. And number three, you get the supernatural backing. So this is why it's important that you get to take action. In that idea that you have, take action. That business that you need to do, take action. In that relationship you need to build, take action, right? Whatever it is that you need to get done, stop procrastinating, stop making excuses, stop being lazy. You need to take action. And that's one thing that I believe would help a lot of people this season, right? This is the year of the supernatural, but the supernatural will always back up the action you take. Remember when Jesus told the servants, fetch the pot with water, take to the master of ceremony. They took action. They didn't question, they didn't ask anything, they didn't try to reason it out. They just took action. And this leads me to the last conversation we shared this week on the belief system before I get into talking about light is listen to obey, right? Listen to obey. So if I were you watching this, I will head straight up to Instagram, Mr. Upgrade on Instagram, right? Just type Mr. Upgrade on Instagram so you can go back and read up the belief system sessions that we have, right? And turn on post notification for Mr. Upgrade on Instagram so that you don't get to miss out on the belief system session, because not all the time we get to do reviews on the belief system session. We just go straight to our conversation. But during the week, right? Remember, this is the Friday, and this is where we get to review the week. So it's also important that we share some of the things that